The first time I took my baby to my in-laws, my mother-in-law said, "Don't worry. If she turns out like you, I'll raise her myself." I laughed, thinking she was joking, until I saw the nursery she'd built in her basement. My husband said, "It's just in case we need help." That night, I packed my daughter's bag and left without a word. 3 months later, she got a cease and desist for using my child's name on her social media. This still makes my skin crawl to talk about, but maybe someone out there needs to hear it. My daughter, Grace, was born in late January. I was still healing, tired all the time, and struggling like most new moms do. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight since the hospital. I was hormonal, overwhelmed, and unsure if I was doing anything right. But I loved my baby girl more than anything. Mark, my husband, started pushing for us to visit his parents about 2 weeks after we got home. I wasn't ready. My stitches were still sore, I barely had energy to get dressed most days, and I didn't feel like putting on a happy face for anyone, let alone his mom, Dorothy. If you've ever met someone who wants to be in control of everything, how you eat, what you wear, how you raise your kids, that's Dorothy. She always acted like she knew better than me, like she was doing me a favor by being in our lives. But I never thought she'd actually try to take something from me. Mark said she had been preparing a little gift for the baby. I didn't know what that meant, but I finally gave in. We drove to their place in Wilkes-Barre on a snowy Saturday. I didn't want to go, but I told myself it was one visit. Just a few hours. Then we could leave. The second we walked through the front door, Dorothy ignored me completely. "No, hi. No, how are you holding up?" She went straight to the baby carrier and unbuckled Grace like she owned her. Didn't ask. Didn't wait for me to hand her over. "Oh, my sweet girl," she whispered, rubbing her cheek against Grace's tiny face. "Don't worry. If you turn out like your mommy, I'll raise you myself." I looked at Mark, waiting for him to speak up. He didn't. He just avoided my eyes. I forced a laugh. "That's not funny." Dorothy didn't blink. "It's not a joke." That's when I started to feel sick. She walked off with Grace in her arms like I wasn't even in the room. No one offered me a chair. No one asked if I needed water or if I was okay. I stood there, leaking milk through my bra, feeling like a stranger in someone else's dream. Then she said she wanted to show us the surprise. She took us down to the basement. That's when I saw it. The basement was no longer a cluttered sewing room. She'd turned it into a fully decorated nursery. Brand new crib, soft blankets, bottles lined up neatly, formula in the cabinet. There were clothes in drawers I didn't buy. A car seat. A damn baby monitor wired into the wall. "Why is this here?" I asked. Dorothy looked so proud. "Just in case you need help. Sometimes moms need a break. It's okay if it's too much for you." I couldn't speak. I turned to Mark, waiting for him to shut it down. He just smiled like it was sweet. "She's just being thoughtful." No. She wasn't. I knew what this was. This wasn't a kind gesture. This was a setup. A plan. She was preparing to be ready if I failed. Or if I left. Or worse, if they made it so I couldn't stay. We didn't even stay for dinner. I said I was tired and wanted to get the baby home. Dorothy looked disappointed, but she didn't argue. That night, after Mark fell asleep, I fed Grace, packed our bags, and left. I didn't even text him. I left a note on the table. "You didn't protect us. You let her plan this. You didn't even ask me how I felt. I need space. Don't come looking." Not yet. I stayed with my friend Allison across town. She had a guest room and didn't ask questions. She just said, "Whatever you need, you've got it." In the days that followed, I waited for Mark to call. He didn't. But I did get a message from Dorothy's Instagram. It was a photo of Grace, one I didn't take. One I'd never posted. She was asleep in her little hospital blanket. The caption said, #MyLittleAngelGrace, counting the days until I get to hold you again. What the hell? I checked her page. There were more pictures. One of Grace in her bassinet. Another of her in my arms at the hospital. She had no right to those. I never gave permission. I never posted those online. She was acting like my daughter was hers. She used hashtags like hashtag my girl and hashtag born to be loved, and even started a Pinterest board titled Grace's First Birthday Ideas. Mark had to be the one giving her the photos. I was furious. I called my cousin, who's a family lawyer in Philly, and she didn't waste time. Within a week, Dorothy got a cease and desist letter. It told her to remove all pictures of Grace from her social media, to stop using her name, and to never refer to her as my girl again. She blew up. 23 missed calls. 8 voicemails. All in one night. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed in one. "You don't get to cut me out. I did nothing wrong. I was only trying to help. This is my grandchild." "No, Dorothy. She's my daughter. And you crossed a line I'm never forgetting." 3 weeks after the cease and desist letter hit her mailbox, Dorothy did something I never saw coming. I was finally starting to breathe again. Grace was sleeping a little longer through the night. I had gotten a new phone number, and Mark hadn't contacted me since I left. I thought maybe, just maybe, they got the message. That this nightmare was behind me. Then I got served. A letter. Official. From family court. Dorothy was filing for grandparent visitation rights. I sat on the floor and held Grace, shaking. She was 5 months old. She didn't even know who Dorothy was. But now her grandmother wanted court-ordered access? The claim said I was withholding contact out of spite, that Dorothy had a strong emotional bond with Grace, and that the child would suffer psychological harm if she was denied visitation. I couldn't believe it. We hadn't even been to her house more than once. How could she claim there was a bond? Grace didn't recognize her face, let alone need her. I called my cousin again. She was furious on my behalf. "This isn't just overstepping," she said. "She's trying to build a case to take control." "What kind of control?" I asked, though I already knew. "Eventually, guardianship. Maybe even custody." That hit me like a truck. I remembered the nursery, the monitor, the formula. It wasn't just in case. It was a backup plan for a future she hoped would happen. That night, I broke down. Not quietly. I cried hard, into a pillow, so I wouldn't scare Grace. I felt helpless, alone, like I was fighting something bigger than me. Dorothy had money. She had lawyers. And if Mark backed her, what did that make me? A tired mom with no job, no house in my name, and no stability? I needed proof. So I started digging. I got into my old shared laptop, the one Mark and I used during my pregnancy. I knew he was sloppy with passwords, and I guessed right. The browser was still logged into his email, and what I found there made my blood go cold. Emails between him and Dorothy, weeks before Grace was even born. They had been planning the nursery together. Dorothy had sent him links to cribs and monitors. He had replied things like, "We'll have to move fast if she goes off the deep end," and "You're the only one I trust with her." Her. Meaning Grace. Not me. They'd been planning for me to fail. I wasn't just imagining it. They thought I'd be unstable after birth, thought I'd fall apart, and Dorothy was ready to scoop in and take over. They never told me. They never helped me. They just waited. I printed every email, saved everything to a flash drive. Then I called Mark. He picked up fast. "You okay?" "You gave her my daughter's photos," I said flatly. A pause. Then, "She just missed her. She didn't mean harm." "You planned this with her. Before she was even born." Silence. "I saw the emails, Mark." More silence. "Do you even want to be a father?" I asked. "Or did you just want your mom to be one?" He hung up. I submitted the emails to my lawyer the next day. We filed a formal objection to the visitation request, citing premeditated intent to gain custody, emotional manipulation, and lack of real relationship with the child. But Dorothy didn't back down. She doubled down. She started spreading lies in the community, saying I had postpartum psychosis, that I abandoned Mark, that I was unstable and off my meds. She even messaged old co-workers of mine from my teaching job to ask for prayers. She was building a smear campaign. And the worst part? Some people believed her. It got worse before it got better. 2 weeks after we filed the objection, a woman knocked on the door of my friend's house, where Grace and I had been staying since I left Mark. She wore a navy blue coat, held a clipboard, and introduced herself as a social worker from Luzerne County Child and Youth Services. Someone had filed an anonymous report. The claim? That I was unstable, that I was isolating my baby, that I might be suffering from untreated mental health issues, that the baby was in danger. I knew right away who sent it. Dorothy didn't want to win in court. She wanted to paint me as unfit, so she could take Grace without court. I invited the woman in. I had nothing to hide. Grace was napping peacefully. Bottles washed. Diapers stocked. Her clothes folded. Her shots up to date. I handed over medical records, pediatric notes, and my own therapy logs. I'd started seeing someone when I moved in with Allison, just to stay ahead of the anxiety and stress. The social worker stayed for about an hour. Before she left, she said, "Honestly, you're doing everything right. Some people just try to weaponize the system." That confirmed it. Dorothy wasn't just overbearing. She was dangerous. I called my lawyer again. "Can I file for a protective order?"
"We can try," she said.
"But we'll need stronger proof she's trying to interfere with your custody, not just annoying you." I had an idea. I waited until midnight. I drove to Mark's office building downtown. I parked down the street and waited. He worked late a lot. I remembered that, and sure enough, around 1 a.m., he came out alone. I followed him home. I needed one last thing. His laptop. I still had a key to the old apartment. And while I don't recommend this, technically it was a gray area legally. I let myself in the next day while he was at work. I moved fast, went straight to his desk, and took photos of what was open on the screen. An email chain between him and his mom. One line stood out. "The CPS report didn't work. We need a new strategy. Maybe get her evaluated by someone on our terms."
Our
terms. She wasn't trying to help. She wasn't trying to visit. She was trying to take my daughter, by any means necessary. I printed the photos and left. That was enough. My lawyer filed a restraining order against Dorothy and included the email chain as evidence. We also amended our response in court, filing a formal request to bar her from any legal claim of visitation until Grace was of legal age. It didn't end the court fight, but it shifted everything. Dorothy went quiet for a while. Real quiet. Until 3 weeks later, I got a message from Mark's cousin, Jen.
"Hey,
I need to tell you something. I don't think you know how deep this goes." I called her right away. What she told me made my blood turn to ice. Dorothy had met with a private investigator in January, before Grace was born. She had asked him to look into me, to find out my medical history, my past mental health issues, my family background. She was collecting dirt in case she needed to make a move. "She even asked if you had a history of drug use," Jen said. "She was building a file on you like you were a criminal." I was stunned. This woman wasn't just overbearing. She was plotting. And Mark? He didn't just let it happen. He helped. I didn't wait anymore. After Jen told me about the private investigator, I met with my lawyer one last time. I wanted full custody. No shared decision-making.
No visitation.
Not even supervised. I wanted the court to know what Mark and Dorothy really were. People who didn't see me as a mother, only a threat. We filed for emergency custody and I submitted everything. The creepy nursery photos. The emails. The CPS report with no findings. The social media screenshots. The restraining order. The cousin's statement. It was all in front of the judge. Every piece. Mark didn't even show up for the emergency hearing. But Dorothy did. She wore a pale blue dress and her Sunday church face. The one that looked sweet if you didn't know her. But the judge wasn't buying it. Not after seeing the messages. "You weren't just trying to help," the judge said. "You were trying to take over." Dorothy tried to argue.
"She's not well."
"She ran away. Left my son." I spoke, my voice steady but cold. "I left to protect my daughter."
"You weren't worried about me."
"You were waiting for me to fall apart." The judge granted me full custody that day. Sole legal and physical. Mark's rights were suspended pending a formal review. Dorothy was barred from all contact. I walked out with Grace in my arms. I didn't look back.
You'd think it ended there.
It didn't. 2 months later, Dorothy broke the order. She showed up outside the daycare I had enrolled Grace in. Watched through the fence. She didn't try to take her, but she stood there for 10 minutes before staff noticed and called the cops. She got arrested. It went on her record. Her church kicked her off the ladies' board. Her neighbors found out. People started avoiding her at the grocery store. Her carefully built image crumbled.
Mark tried to apologize after that.
I didn't know she'd take it that far, he said on the phone. Yes, you did, I said. You helped her. I just thought, maybe you needed help. I paused, then said the one thing he wasn't ready to hear. I did need help. But not from you. And sure as hell not from her. I changed Grace's last name. I moved 2 hours away, got a new job, a small apartment near the river, and started over. Sometimes I still have dreams about that basement nursery, about her voice saying, if she turns out like you. But now, when I wake up, Grace is there. She's safe. She's mine. And every time I look at her, I remember the most important lesson I ever learned. Not all battles are loud. Some are slow, silent, and full of fake smiles. But when someone tries to take your child, you fight with everything you've got. Even if it means becoming someone you never thought you'd be. Even if it means losing people you once trusted. Because some lines, once crossed, don't get erased. And some people, once unmasked, don't get forgiven.